Welcome to Top 10 Nerd. I'm Kat Jovi, and today we're going to be talking about the lovely Black Widow, or also known as Natasha Romanoff or Natasha Romanova. There's multiple ones. She first appeared as a Russian spy against Iron Man in the Tales of Suspense issue number 52. 5 issues later, she reoccurs, and this time she has Hawkeye on her side as well. Her government gives her some high-tech weaponry, as well as the first Black Widow costume. However, she eventually defects to the United States, joining the Avengers along with Hawkeye, as we know from the films. Like many people, she had a few romantic interests over the time. A few is really being gentle about it. And today we're going to talk about some of them. 10 people who Black Widow has hooked up with. At number 10, we have Hercules from the X-Men. This was a smaller blip on her radar, thus it's number 10. But in the Korvac saga in 1978, they are briefly a couple. Thankfully, their relationship doesn't make anything awkward once they break up, and they still work together for some time. Apparently, even in a 2010 issue, she is still saying things like, "He's hot, maybe something will happen again." She does have quite a few people who are kind of on again, off again, so who knows, Hercules, you still might get your moment.
Number 9. Chandra Kinsolving. Chandra is a metahuman who originally went by Sandra Asplin. She and her brother were both adopted and grew up abused by their father until one day they used their powers to, well, they accidentally killed him. She ended up running away from home and grew up to become a psychotherapist. Her abilities allow her to heal or kill those she comes into physical contact with. She has been called upon to help heal Bruce a few times, including after his spine was broken by Bane. During her time as his healer and personal physician, Chandra developed feelings for Bruce and he for her. She enjoyed how mysterious he was, and the two developed a romance. Chandra would later lose her mind after accidentally killing her brother while in a drug-induced, confused childlike state. Her mentality reverted to that of a child. Bruce took it upon himself to make sure she was taken care of, buying a home for her and staffing it with medical personnel to look after Chandra for the rest of her days. So sweet. Number 8. Richard RORY. While Richard may not be a hero in the super sense, he has worked heroically to try and protect the monstrous hero Man-Thing after an encounter with him left Rory forever changed. Richard was originally a DJ for a radio station in Florida who always seemed to find himself down on his luck. Again, not a great pick when it comes to partners for Jen, but definitely one that briefly happened. These two ran into each other in the streets of Las Vegas, and Rory offered Jennifer Walters a ride after he suspected that she had had a run-in with the terrifying She-Hulk. She originally turned him down until she saw his sweet ride, which was limo. Rory had just won a ton of money at the casino and was currently quite well off. Jen decided to go with Richard. Richard is a pessimist who feels he always has bad luck, and as such this makes him pretty mopey, and we usually see anything that happens to him in a negative mindset as a result. Although Richard may have not been great for Jen, Jen was pretty good for him, offering that Richard's main problem was actually that he just had an unhealthy self-image. The two parted ways after an adventure involving the Man-Thing, though they would run into each other a couple more times in the comics. They parted with a kiss.
Moving on to number 7, Supergirl. Supergirl and Superman have a bit of a weird history together during the Silver Age, and despite being related, have been paired together romantically a handful of times, usually in one-off stories that turn out to have no real consequence. For example, this went down in Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane issue 55, a product of Otto Binders, who was notorious in the Silver Age for putting the Man of Steel in some pretty ridiculous scenarios. In this issue, we see Superman's teenage cousin appear to be married to her hunky relative, and even better, they've had 2 children. Luckily, this was not incest. Turns out red kryptonite was the real culprit here, with it having driven Supergirl insane. While insane, she decided that she wanted to screw with Lois Lane by deceiving her into thinking that she had lost Superman for good. Supergirl had also managed to hypnotize Superman so that he'd go along with it. And those super babies flying around? They're robots, because of course. This isn't the only time that Supergirl got kinda weird. We've got another instance coming up later on our list. But for now, in at number 6, Superwoman. This Superwoman is a Lois Lane alternate who hails from Earth 3, and played a substantial role in the Forever Evil crossover. Technically, she is an amalgamation of both Lois and Wonder Woman, serving in the Wonder Woman role on the Crime Syndicate team. She and Ultraman are a couple, and she is pregnant with his child. Now for context, Ultraman, the Superman alternate from this Earth, is a complete a-hole, and his upbringing didn't help. Rather than the supportive and loving Kents, this version of his adopted parents were junkies, and he does not care for Superwoman at all. The only reason why he's with her is because she's the only one on this world capable of carrying his child. But joke is on Ultraman, because the unborn child is like a chess piece for Superwoman, who uses it to manipulate others, including Owlman, who she tells is the baby's father. Turns out the real dad though is Alexander Luthor. who is that world's Shazam, and the only hero from Earth 3. Regardless, she has slept around quite a bit considering she was able to convince 3 separate men, including Superman/Ultraman of Earth 3, that their baby was theirs. Yikes. Oh.
Number 6. Harley Quinn and the Joker. So these two aren't really a weird romance in terms of understanding just why or how they got together. They're more of a weird romance in the fact that so many people still ship them today, years after they've broken up and after it's really been established that their relationship was extremely toxic for both of them. Now, these two really don't belong together. Of course, unless we're talking about some kind of magical alternate reality like White Knight, which features a reformed version of the Joker, Jack Napier, who only seeks to redeem himself and basically takes on the role of hero once he regains his sanity, continuing to work on his mental health. But we're not talking about that version of their relationship, are we? Even villains don't deserve a relationship as toxic as Harley Quinn and the Joker's typically is. Their relationship is not only toxic, it's abusive and destructive. Still, the world keeps turning and plenty of fans still to this day keep shipping these two and hoping we'll see Harley return to the Joker's side once more. I'm not trying to ship shame, but I just personally find the love for this relationship shocking and confusing considering present continuity. But hey, people gonna ship. People gonna ship.
Number 5. Wolverine and Squirrel Girl. Yeah, this one's weird. So in part 1 of this list, I had mentioned that Wolverine, when he was with a young Mary Jane Watson, which is just a wild time. If you haven't seen part 1, you gotta go watch it. It has some fun stuff in there. Turns out he has this weird history as well with Squirrel Girl. And this has been speculated for a while now, and it comes down to a simple page of text. In New Avengers issue 7, we see the two talking as if something had happened. Something rather intimate, that is. A little intimate. Squirrel Girl is like, well, I hope we can agree to be professional, you know? And Wolverine's like, of course. You look amazing. And she's like, oh, you do look good too. There's just something there. This is not a conversation, like I don't catch up with my buddies and be like, hey, how's school? Good, you look amazing. You do too. I'm like, yeah, let's be professional. They're like, oh, what? Why wouldn't you? This is a normal thing. This becomes more evident come Wolverine issue 8. Emma Frost had entered Wolverine's mind and literally found a room called Sexual Fantasies. And then Emma's like, I know I'm gonna regret going into this one. And maybe she was right, because upon opening the door, none other than Squirrel Girl herself is hanging out in this room. Proof? I don't know, proof of a weird fling? I think so.
At number 4, we have Michael Corcoran. This is a way back playback. This is an issue when Black Widow goes undercover as a defective American scientist named Laura Mathers to try to find out where they're keeping Ivan Petrovich. She works at his lab and learns about their goals, overhears conversations with his Soviet superiors, becomes romantic with him. She thinks she has it all figured out and now she's gonna go get him out of this area, and then it turns out it's actually a trap for her. However, now that Michael's usefulness is at an end, the KGB agent comes and stabs him in the back, and then he dies in Black Widow's arms where he confesses that he really did love her. My heart. That's so sad.
Number 3. Zatanna Zatara. Bruce and Zatanna were childhood friends who came to truly care for one another. Bruce even refers to Zatanna affectionately as Z. Although the two have had their ups and downs, like when Zatanna altered Batman's memories, they are always there for one another when the other calls upon them. After saving Zatanna from the Joker, the two spend the night together and Zatanna asks why they aren't a thing. Bruce confesses that although he has feelings for her and would like to have a relationship with her, he cannot do so as he does not want to expose her to the darkness of his world. Such a Batman answer. Come on, Bruce. I'm pretty sure the magical Zatanna could handle it. She could even bring some light into the darkness maybe. Just conjure it up. Number 2. WYATT Wingfoot. She-Hulk met WYATT during her time on the Fantastic Four roster when she was standing in for Ben Grimm. The team had a run-in with WYATT and his tribe. But WYATT Wingfoot is not superpowered. He has acted as an ally to both the Fantastic Four and She-Hulk herself on her own adventures. He often also acts as a hero when it comes to protecting his tribe, the Kiwazi. Sorry if I say that wrong. Jennifer and WYATT quickly begin a romance that would span over decades in the comics. She met his parents, he attended law school, and even at one point proposed to her. Unfortunately, later his own duties as chief of the Kiwazi tribe and ensuring the tribe's safety would oftentimes keep him away from her. Still, the two's on and off again relationship has been revisited as late as the 2000s and as early as the 1980s. That's a long relationship.
And finally, in at number 1, one pairing with Superman that isn't weird as f***. Wonder Woman. Ah yes, the most obvious superhero pairing for the penultimate superhero, Wonder Woman and Superman. These two have had an on and on again relationship for a long time running, existing in both the main continuity and alternate timelines in the DC universe. The alternate timeline romances between the two are plenty. In Batman The Dark Knight Strikes Again, Frank Miller's sequel to The Dark Knight Returns, which paled in comparison to the original, in my opinion, features Clark and Diana in the future being an item and having a superpowered daughter named after his mom. In Kingdom Come, after Lois Lane was killed off by the Joker, Superman and Wonder Woman start a family together, with Bruce Wayne hanging out as an adorable old uncle at fam jams. There's even Superman Distant Fires, where we see Clark and Diana send their own son away from a post-apocalyptic Earth to another planet to save him from Earth's inevitable demise. But let's talk about the canon romance the two shared during the New 52 in 2012, when they were officially a couple. It was a big deal. They even got a steamy Justice League cover too. Needless to say, it did not last though. Teardrops. Alright, there we have it, friends. Who do you think Superman should hook up with if he wasn't with Lois Lane? Give us a shout in those comments below and let us know your thoughts and feels. If you guys dug this video, you know what to do. Spread that love, hit that thumbs up button, and be sure to subscribe to Top 10 Nerd for more lists like this. We'd love it if you hung out with us some more. In the meantime, thanks for watching, friends. I'll catch you all in the next video. Sitting in his living room drinking a cognac? No, I always say cognac wrong, but also I don't know if that's what he's drinking. He's just drinking a strong drink. Oh, drugs. Gotta love them. Don't put that last bit in. He was able to convince 3 separate men. In it, Darkseid where. Although technically Wonder Woman could totally birth his children. I don't think she'd want to, but that's debatable. Maybe don't put any of that blah in. I'm just kind of rambling. Sometimes I have thoughts mid-video. I like to add them in. Sometimes they're In at number 2, Luma Line. When the two leave hit. Nope. Back we go. Back we go. DC has been publishing comics since 1938, with some of their characters having existed for over 80 years. What does this mean? That they have had a lot of time to form some questionable partnerships. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the weirdest pairings in DC Comics history as we count down the top 10 weirdest DC Comics hookups. If you love strange romance and odd pairings, be sure to check out our top 10 weirdest Marvel Comics hookups list by clicking over here, and be sure to stick around to the end of this list where I will have some bonus content coming your way. Alright, now let's get counting. Number 10, Superman and Wonder Woman. Some people love this pairing, some people prefer Diana with Batman, some people would rather she was with Steve Trevor, and then there are some of us, like myself, who just think Diana is a strong woman who don't need no man. Superman with Wonder Woman, however, is admittedly not that weird. Both are powerful heroes who respect and care for one another, so what's so wrong with them hooking up and having a relationship? We've seen alternate realities and Elseworld stories where this has worked. Heck, they've even had children together. The moment when DC overstepped, though, it seems, with these two and made it kinda weird, was when they made their relationship a permanent fixture of the New 52 main continuity, which honestly just made it kinda strange. Especially when we then were forced to watch them get intimate and talk dirty just about everywhere and almost all the time, because I guess they're both just that invincible and super, and I guess horny? I don't know. Not something we really needed to see, was it?
Number 9. Winter Soldier and Black Widow. This is one that audience members have talked about seeing for a while on the big screen, like they want this. If the MCU had worked so that Bucky and the Avengers got more time to hang out, this might have ended up happening. I could see it. I think there's more to Natasha and Bucky, because in the comics, Bucky trains Nat in the Red Room, and then in the MCU, Natasha talks to Steve about the Winter Soldier and how she's tried to stop him before. So she knows about his existence in that universe, just how much we don't really know yet. But with Black Widow being a prequel to Iron Man 2, I feel like we're gonna see some sort of flashbacks or something that involves Bucky. I think it's going to be full of cameos. Natasha was given this serum in her origins, of course, and I hope they include this in the movie where she ages slower. So her and Bucky are around the same age in the comics, funny enough. And she knows him as James back in the day, you know, before the Winter Soldier stuff. So could the comic book hookup just be a one-time thing, or will we see some sort of flirtatious behavior with the two in her solo flick and some saucy flashback scene? Let us know below. Do you want to see this? Is this kind of like a weird thing? I know people want Bucky and Cap to be like a thing. We were all rooting for it, but hey, it's never too late.
Number 7, Batwoman. That's right, before we had the Kate Kane of today, now played by Ruby Rose in the CW series, and one of the most prominent LGBTQ+ characters in the DC universe, I even keep an inspirational drawing of her at my desk, no joke. We had Kathy Kane. Oddly enough, Kathy Kane and her niece Betty Kane were actually designed as a female version of the dynamic duo Batman and Robin and created to be their love interests. In fact, their creation was a result of homophobia, as a Batman and Robin series had people questioning the sexuality and relationship between Batman and Robin. It wasn't until the New 52 that Kathy was reintroduced as Kate Kane, Batman's lesbian cousin and vigilante in her own right, who also came from a wealthy family and had a militaristic upbringing. Hawkeye. In the What If series Volume 2, Issue 114, we get to examine a world where heroes and villains stayed on Battleworld during the events of the original Secret Wars, laid down their arms, and ended up basically retiring and settling down. One of the oddest couples to come out of this What If story was She-Hulk and Hawkeye, who had a son named CJ, who was green with his mom's strength, but the skill of his dad when it came to being a crack shot. How these two came together exactly, we'll never know, but hey, at least they weren't quite as strange as the pairing of Captain America and Rogue. So there's that.
Moving on to number 5, the Female Furies. Taking a break from the comics and looking at the Superman animated series, let's look at an episode titled Legacy, or rather a two-parter episode called Legacy that acted as the series finale. In it, Darkseid brainwashes Superman into believing that he was raised on Apokolips as his adoptive son rather than the Kent's adoptive son on Earth. He does this as a means of using the Man of Steel to conquer the universe for him. But when Superman makes his way to Earth to take it for his daddy dearest, his memories start to come back and conflict ensues. Now during his brainwash period, Kal-El gets to experience the perks of being the son of the ruler of Apokolips, which just so happens to be hooking up with these 3 ladies known as the Female Furies. They consist of Lashina, a sexually charged BDSM new god of Apokolips, Stompa, who seems to have a foot fetish, and Mad Harriet, who is an insane Wolverine-esque killing machine. And it's implied that they had a foursome with the Man of Steel. Darkseid even tells him to, I quote, "enjoy the fruits of your labor." Yeah. Little weird there for your adoptive dad to be like, go on, have sex with my lackeys, ugh. Just strange dynamic. Maybe things on Apokolips are different, I don't know.
Number 4, Superman and Supergirl. We've actually seen these two get married in the comics, although it was a strange sight, at least those two versions of our heroes were not related. Linda Danvers tied the knot with Silver Age Superman, and Linda Danvers, while Supergirl, was not actually Superman's cousin at all. Kind of a different thing. She's not Kara. Her story was a lot more complex than Kara's was. Linda and Kal-El would even have a child together, Ariella Kent. But although this doesn't seem as weird when given the context, it was also once implied in Action Comics issue number 289 that if Superman could marry anyone, he'd want to marry his cousin Supergirl. At least that's what Superman said when Kara revealed she had been trying to play matchmaker and find Superman a suitable woman to marry. Kal-El reveals that Supergirl is the only woman suited to marrying him, but of course that they could not marry because on Krypton, cousins aren't allowed to get married. He does acknowledge though that in some countries of Earth that is allowed. Just what are you suggesting, Superman? Why'd you bring that up? He's like, we can't do it, but you know, here there's some places we could do it technically.
And number 3, Gamora and Iron Man. Now at the start of Endgame, we see Tony Stark and Nebula stranded in space after the events of Infinity War. The two weirdly got along. I mean, yeah, they both bonded over losing a massive battle that resulted in lots of their family and friends dying, so it's kind of easy to let bygones be bygones, you know? Tony and the daughter of Thanos in one ship playing games, you gotta love it. Now, what if I told you that this isn't the first time Tony has gotten close to one of these mad sisters? Tony and Gamora, believe it or not, have hooked up before. So the panel starts with Gamora being all shy and cool. She has like her drink and she's like, oh, you're gonna have to do better out here. And then Tony responds in his classic Tony Stark manner, I can do better. And then it immediately cuts over to the next page of both of them lying in bed. He's all tucked into the blanket, like the shell head looks like he's shell shocked, to say the least. And then Gamora's chill about it. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna go back to the bar. And Tony's like, alright, cool. And then after she leaves, he lets out a small, ow, which, pretty obvious.
At number 2, we have Spider-Man. There was a time when Hydra attempted to take over S.H.I.E.L.D. During this time, Natasha was tortured until she was completely switched over to her cover identity, which at this time was Nancy Rushman, a school teacher. So she is walking around New York City and gets mugged, as you do. Spider-Man jumps in to save her right as she just like karate chops this criminal, so that's kind of cool. He remembers her and he wants to help her get her memory back. Naturally, she thinks he's very sweet, and then she actually ends up falling for him, and then he's super torn because, you know, Black Widow likes him and she's super hot, but, you know, he should help her get her memory back. So, of course, because he's a really good guy, he helps her get her memory back. When she comes to or becomes herself again, she realizes that, you know, I'm not really digging you anymore, and then gets out of there basically.
Number 1, Catwoman. Kind of the ultimate match for Batman, am I right? Sure, you may say, but Amanda, Catwoman is not a hero, she's a criminal. But the truth is, she really kind of rides the line of being both. She may be a thief, but she often steals for the benefit of others. She may work alongside villains, but she usually ends up double-crossing them, often to help Batman. Remember when she joined the Gotham City Sirens just to spy on them for Bruce? Selina Kyle and Bruce Wayne even almost made it to the altar. In fact, it was Selina's love of Bruce that prevented the two from wedding, fearing that their marriage would lead him to become truly happy and thereby destroy who he was, believing that Bruce needed his misery in order to be who he is. At least that's what she tells Bruce in a love letter. Although the two didn't end up tying the knot in the end, they still have managed an on and off again love affair for over 80 years in the comics, which remains impressive, to say the least. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. I hope you enjoyed this list. Who is your favorite superhero or even supervillain that Batman has dated? Would you like us to create a list about the criminals that Batman has dated? Spoiler alert, there's a lot. Like seriously, he really needs to start doing background checks on some of these ladies. Let us know your thoughts and feels in the comments below, and if you think there's a superhero we may have missed. Speaking of comments, it's time for that bonus content as we turn to some comments from one of my latest videos, Top 10 Superhero Couples Who Went Too Far, Part 3. Carrie7 comments, has Talia and Jason Todd been done yet? Because ew. I don't believe we mentioned them yet, surprisingly. But the relationship coming out of pure spite for Batman is pretty gross. Also, what is the age difference there? Maybe we'll see that one in a part 4. Drew Sutton writes, good list. I tease you about one of your word pronunciations, but we don't know each other. Without that context, teasing is just trolling. I like that saying, Drew. And you're right, without that context, teasing can easily be perceived as trolling on the internet. I think I know the word you mean though. Was it banished or banished, as I said? That was a Shakespeare reference, as the relationship I was talking about between Gambit and Belladonna is an obvious nod to Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Fun fact, it is sometimes pronounced banished in Shakespeare in order to maintain the iambic pentameter. Sorry, theater and literature nerd over here. Sorry about that. Be sure to comment below for a chance to be featured in a future video. And while you're on your way down there, remember to like, share, sub, and ring our bell as well. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight / Ruby Roundhouse, reminding you to stay nerdy, YouTube. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. With Jennifer Walters, you almost get two sides of a coin, She-Hulk and Jen. Jen is usually seen as being less confident, more reserved, and slightly more level-headed. She-Hulk is indomitable and a force to be reckoned with, confident, playful, and sexy. Over the years, Jen has come to realize that She-Hulk is as much a part of her as anything, and is actually part of her identity. Overall, both sides of her are strong, smart, sexy, and powerful in her mind. This has also been a recurring theme that she has explored throughout her relationships. Today we're going to take a look at some of those relationships and how they shaped Jen's character as we count down the top 10 superheroes She-Hulk has hooked up with. Be sure to stick around till the end of this video to see if any of your previous comments will get a shout out. Alright, let's get counting. Number 10, STARFOX. These two were so weird in the comics, and definitely the writing of how this all kind of came about is something I feel like most of us would just like to forget, which is why they are ranked so low. The two had a fling one night when they were both Avengers. Jen even described the sex as being amazing, but later she reminisces about her night with STARFOX while defending him in a sexual assault case. She begins to worry through hearing a woman's testimony that he has used his powers and influence on her to make her fall for him. It turned out that he hadn't done that, but something just as bad. He had manipulated her into falling for someone else. He was of course just doing it because he wanted to see Jen happy, but manipulating someone into having feelings for another person, which later results in them getting married, is never really a good look, especially on someone who is supposed to be a hero like Eros. What were you thinking, StarFox? What were you thinking?
In at number 9, Lila Laurel. In Superman issue 141 from 1960, Superman ends up flying through a time barrier, letting himself in a year sometime before Krypton exploded. How this whole experience wasn't more traumatizing for him is beyond us, although Silver Age, so... Anywho, he begins to lose his powers and finds himself trapped on the planet. And when he's wandering around, he discovers a spaceship. Turns out this ship is actually part of a movie set of a sci-fi film being produced by a Kryptonian production company. He walks onto the set, ends up in the film, and meets an actress named Lila Laurel, one of Krypton's most famous movie starlets. They end up popping some pills together and then find themselves in a place called Rainbow Canyon, declaring their love for one another. Oh, drugs. Eventually his powers are restored and he goes back to Earth, but later Lila would return in a story penned by Alan Moore in 1985 titled For the Man Who Has Everything, which saw Clark getting a dream machine plant as a gift, which granted one's deepest desires. And Superman's deepest desire? Well, to be a normal Kryptonian, living with his wife Layla and their son. It's kind of heartbreaking.
Number 8. Arsenal and Cheshire. This was a weird one before the New 52, but even after it still stayed as a pretty bizarre relationship that some writers just still love to ship. Arsenal is Roy Harper, originally known as Green Arrow's ward and sidekick Speedy. He was Speedy before Mia Dearden took over. Roy has a pretty weird and deadly relationship on and off with villain and assassin Cheshire. Despite being terrible for one another, however, these two even at one point had a child together, and oddly enough it became the best part of their relationship. Roy's relationship with his daughter Leanne was one of arguably the only good things to come out of this weird romance with Cheshire. However, before New 52 happened, Leanne died and we got a very strange moment where Roy and Cheshire started blaming one another for the tragedy, and then that fight escalated to a passionate moment between the two. Not a thing usually in real life, by the way. And Roy both wanted to sleep with Cheshire following the loss of their daughter, while also finding it difficult to get intimate due to his intense sadness. We also got a weird moment later on when Cheshire tried to use the death of their daughter to guilt trip Roy into helping her, implying he owed her because their daughter died while in his care. This is some intense and weird stuff.
Number 7. Nightcrawler and Jermaine. This one is juicy. Imagine you're dating somebody and then you find out that they're actually an adopted sibling. Like, that's a weird conversation to have. I mean, you're not related, sure, but like, that's still weird. That's a very weird thing to do. That's exactly what happened to Kurt Wagner. Kurt grew up with Jermaine SZARDOS. He was adopted by her and her mother, and they of course became close, being the new siblings and all. But then things get amazing, okay? So Kurt started to date a woman named Amanda Sefton, okay? And then she turned out to be Jermaine in disguise. Surprise, dude, that's crazy. Now, normally when you find something like this out, you're a little upset. You've been deceived. You're obviously confused, and you're probably pretty angry. I mean, one would assume. But Nightcrawler is totally cool with it. He's like, you know what, I'd be more demonstrative about it, but I don't want to set a bad example for Kitty Pryde. Yeah, or you could respond like that. That's one way you could come back. This dude is not fazed by this at all. He's like, yeah man, I basically have 2 girlfriends. What's up?
At number 6, we have Alexei Shostakov, also known as Red Guardian. So Alexei is an amazing test pilot back in the Soviet Union. The KGB orchestrates him marrying a famous ballerina, Natasha Romanova, and the KGB decides they want her to join them as a secret agent. So they fake her husband's death to help sort of push her into the Red Room program, and then she decides to become a spy to honor her late husband's death.
Number 5. Phantasm. Andrea Beaumont becomes Phantasm after the death of her father in the animated universe. Bruce and her have a relationship before she adopts the vigilante mantle, however. The two fall in love, and he even considers giving up his work as Batman to be with her and find happiness. Bruce proposes and Andrea accepts, but her father pulls her away from Bruce and into hiding with him when his mob ties become treacherous. Despite their efforts, Carl Beaumont, Andrea's father, is found and killed, and Andrea seeks to avenge his death, becoming Phantasm. Her and Bruce don't end up staying together despite discovering that they are both vigilantes. See, they both follow sort of a different moral code, which leads them to part ways. Number 4. Hercules. She-Hulk has had a thing for Hercules for a while in the comics. She's fantasized about him on more than one occasion and fought alongside him. In one instance, he made an appearance in Volume 2, Issue 30 of She-Hulk, where the two got up to more than just a fantasy, and more than just fighting. She-Hulk teamed up to help Hercules take down a Celtic god, which ended up with the two of them alone together in an ambulance. They got to talking apparently, and one thing led to another. Before Jen knew it, she was resting in the arms of a god after finally getting to sleep with him. She knew it wasn't going to end up anywhere, but she was pretty fine with that. One thing I've always loved about She-Hulk is how much she just owns her own sexuality. So cool to see that in comics in general.
Moving on to number 3, Maxima. Maxima is technically a supervillain, but considering Superman has a thing for mortal Earth ladies, and we have 10 spots on our list, we're gonna just let that whole evil thing slide for this number. Besides, she ends up becoming good later anyway, joining up with the Justice League. Maxima was introduced in 1989's Action Comics issue 645. Hailing from the alien planet of Almerac, she came to Earth in search of a suitable mate, and set her sights on Superman, who was genetically compatible with her. She could give him children, something that, at the time, no Earth woman was capable of doing. That's actually like a common theme in mates for Superman that are not Lois Lane or Wonder Woman. Although technically Wonder Woman could totally birth his children. Despite this, Superman rejected her offer. The two would hook up though in The Adventures of Superman Annual 3 Volume 1 in 1991 in an Elseworlds story in which Lois Lane dies from carrying Superman's child, who literally kicks her to death from the womb out. Maxima becomes the perfect rebound for him and the two fall in love. In the main continuity though, Maxima these days isn't really interested in the Man of Steel, opting out for a Woman of Steel instead. More recently in the New 52, she was revealed to be gay, bonding with Supergirl after they met in Supergirl issue 36. She even develops feelings for her, and reveals that she was forced to leave her homeworld because her culture demanded that she find a heterosexual partner to mate with, which is a pretty good way to revise a hero whose whole shtick has literally been about trying to procreate with Superman. Very two-dimensional. But now she's a character who is more three-dimensional and gay.
Number 2. Supergirl and Comet the Super Horse. One of the weirdest DC romances comes to us from the time Supergirl ended up in a relationship with her horse, Comet. Of course, Comet wasn't really just a horse, he was actually originally a centaur named Byron, who Circe attempted to help turn into a full human. Unfortunately, this went awry and resulted in him actually being turned into a full horse instead, though a horse who possessed telepathy, super strength, and immortality at least. In other words, a super horse. Eventually, Comet met a sorcerer who could help to reverse some of the spell that made him a full horse, but only some of it. Comet was then granted the ability to turn human whenever a comet passed, and it was during this time that he sought out and pursued a romantic relationship with Supergirl while in his human form, because no matter his appearance, he would always love her. It's so weird.
And finally, number 1. WandaVision. Yep, with the new Disney Plus show getting released soon, I have to save this one for last. This one is hot out of the MCU, and I feel like it's a relationship that people overlook. Now, I'm talking about the MCU story with these two characters, that's it. These guys should not be together. Like, what? During Civil War, she buries this dude underground when he attacks Hawkeye. Vision also is made out of the Mind Stone mostly, so the same stone that gave Wanda and Pietro their powers in this universe. And maybe that's why they're attracted to each other, but like that's not enough. That's still, like they're sexually involved. Like they, you know, it's weird. The fact that they ended up together at all during any of these storylines, like how do you have the time for relationships? Like from Age of Ultron up until Infinity War, there's like no chance or time to hit this off properly. Like that's the biggest red flag couple. And sure, this last one is just my opinion, but I feel like I'm not alone here. The romance started somewhere between Civil War and Infinity War, but like what we see on the screen isn't enough to make us believe that they're like a solid, happy, healthy couple. It just doesn't make any sense. Well, there you have it guys, those are our top 10 weirdest Marvel hookups part 2. Let us know down below which ones we missed so we can add them to our reading list this weekend and we'll go through. Now we head over to part 1 where I will pull out a couple of those comments. Okay, this first one comes to us from one of our faves on the channel, Broken Bridge, and they comment, I wonder what it would have been like if Sharon Carter became the next Captain America. It probably would have been pretty sick, man. I agree. Like, I don't think we have to wait too much longer, because with Disney Plus releasing the whole What If series, they actually showed us some concept art of Peggy Carter sporting her own suit with the shield. So I feel like after that's received well by the audience, they can probably toss Sharon the shield at some point. Like I feel like that's their next step after that. We might even see her suit up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Maybe the last episode, I'll call it. And this next one comes at us from Sunstar. Fassbender, Magneto, and Evangeline Lilly would work in a crossover event if Ant-Man was not in the picture. Okay, maybe. I hear ya. I feel like Evangeline Lilly, like her version of the Wasp, is too badass for Fassbender. Like I think she would meet him and be like, yeah, no thanks, peace. And then turn into a wasp and fly away. She's gonna go with the shrinking, funny wannabe magician. I mean, that's obviously the best point. She's got too much sass for fast. There we go. We can write that one down. Well, there you have it, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the video. And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed and those notifications are turned on. You gotta turn those on. So when we do our live premieres, you know when to hop in the chat and we can respond to your comments live in real life IRL. It's always a blast. I'm Taylor McWatters. See you next time, nerds.
If there is anything I have learned from Batman's long romantic history, it's that being a dark and mysterious vigilante usually leads you to making bad relationship choices. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. My name is Amanda McKnight. I'm dressed up as Ruby Roundhouse from Jumanji 2 in honor of Halloween, and I will be your host for this list where we talk about some of the better relationship choices that Bruce Wayne has made. Keyword there being some, because honestly, even when it comes to the superhero ones, not even all of them are great. Today we'll be counting down the top 10 superheroes Batman has hooked up with. So get ready to toss those batarangs of love, and be sure to stick around to the end of this video where I have some bonus content coming your way. Alright, let's get counting. Number 10, Batgirl. So I really did not want to include Batgirl on this list, but Batman seems to have a bit of an issue when it comes to dating superheroes. He seems to be more attracted to ladies with a criminal connection. Most of them having one unbeknownst to him. For a world-renowned detective, you'd really think he would be better at picking up on that. I feel like he and Drake could bond over all the bad choices they have made when it comes to their romantic lives. Speaking of not so great choices, Batgirl and Batman had a thing in the animated version of The Killing Joke and in the Batman Beyond comic universe. While the whole idea of this relationship really creeps me out for a lot of reasons, I will say that Batgirl is definitely just an all-around great superhero, so for that reason, I allowed her to make the cut. What happened between Bruce and Barbara? Well, in the animated film The Killing Joke, they sleep together on a roof after having a fight that gets physical in more ways than one. Because yeah, apparently that is what the comic book was missing. In the Batman Beyond comic book universe, the two sleep together and Bruce gets Barbara pregnant while Dick Grayson is out of town. So yeah, relationship? Not so great. But Barbara Gordon herself? Pretty great.
At number 9, we have Bucky Barnes. In the Civil War comic book storyline, it's explained that during the Soviet Union days, Natasha and Bucky were actually together. They were both in training and becoming operatives, and while spending that much time training and having to be strict and all that adrenaline, I mean, something's bound to happen. Later on, around the time when Bucky becomes Captain America, after the Cap is presumed dead, Stark tells Bucky that the Cap wanted his mantle to be continued, and of course Bucky seems like a natural choice. They end up actually dating again. But again, with her, it's on again off, and things end up ending. At number 8, we have Daredevil, or Matt Murdock. They worked together for a while. She helped him take out the Owl in Daredevil issue number 81. After that, he even ends his relationship with Karen Page to be with her. They fall in love. Then they get a fresh start, and they decide to move to San Francisco to go fight crime together there. However, things go south with their relationship when she starts to feel like he thinks he's better than her, like he's better at the whole vigilante thing than she is, and he doesn't really appreciate her skills, she's not his equal, and that just really sours things, doesn't work for her. So she leaves and goes to work with the X-Men. Enter Hercules. Maybe that's why it was like just a short kind of blip, because that was her rebound. See, it's all making sense when you put it all together.
Number 8, Sacha Bordeaux. Do you remember the movie Bodyguard with Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner? That is this kind of romance. Sacha was hired as Bruce Wayne's bodyguard against his wishes. Despite him trying to avoid her, Sacha was really good at her job, making it hard for Bruce to shake her. In fact, she was so good she ended up discovering that Bruce Wayne was Batman. Unable to fire her because of this, Bruce trained with her, and eventually she joined him on his patrols. She quickly fell in love with him, despite the fact that he was busy dating other women. After he and Sacha are framed with the murder of his girlfriend, Vesper Fairchild, they become closer and have a brief romance. Unfortunately for Sacha, Batman does not end up always always loving her, nor does he even sing the song I Will Always Love You to her, which is unfortunate because that would be hilarious. He's sang for Zatanna. Number 7. Clay Quartermain. Clay was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and led the Hulkbusters at one point. He recruited She-Hulk for S.H.I.E.L.D. when she was called in after being a registered superhuman under the Superhuman Registration Act. Shortly after joining up, Clay called She-Hulk Mrs. Jameson, using her former married name. She corrected him, saying that she had actually reverted back to Walters after her divorce. Hearing she was divorced, Clay became intrigued, and it's implied that he put a move on her. She-Hulk did end up sleeping with him, though she seems to express some remorse after, thinking to herself that Jennifer Walters would not have done that. But as She-Hulk, she does what she wants, when she wants, and with whom she wants. However, it also seemed that her decision to sleep with Quartermain left her questioning her own sense of self, and caused her to look in the mirror and face an emptiness that seemed to be eating away inside her.
Number 6. Kitty and Colossus. Age is just a number, I guess. When it comes to Marvel romances, they aren't really the most healthy of romances, you know? When the two first met in X-Men issue 129, she's said to be 13 years old. They're trying to recruit her to go to Professor X's school. Colossus is like 18 at the time, or so we think. Now, in the Days of Future Past storyline beginning in X-Men 141, we see Kitty and Colossus married in the future. Nice, I think. That's another thing though, like back to the 14-year-old part, because that's the craziest point that I'm trying to make here. They had their first kiss during the space mission, and right before they kiss, Kitty is even like, oh, I wish I was older, and Colossus is like, so do I. And then he explains how serious he's being by kissing her. And cue the police, send them in guys, we got him, roll it down, let's go. And then after the kiss, he's like, oh, you're not older, like you should be older. And Kitty's like, it doesn't matter. He's like, no, it for sure does matter. I'm like, yeah, you just kissed though, it kinda feel like you're already nailing that confident, buddy. Yeah, this isn't the right time or place. More so, time. That's a big time, that 4-letter word. That's the main thing here.
Number 5. Huntress and Robin. This relationship comes to us from Earth number 2, where Huntress is actually the daughter of Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle, as opposed to the more common Huntress that we've come to know as Helena Bertinelli. Bertinelli actually also has had a relationship with Dick Grayson, though admittedly a much less weird one. On Earth 2, Robin and Helena Wayne Huntress are therefore kind of like brother and sister, as both sort of grew up together under the guidance of Bruce, which makes all the flirting and tension between them super awkward. At one point, Dick only makes it more awkward when he acknowledges that he remembers helping to change Helena when she was just a baby. He also at one point breaks into her apartment when she's moved out of the Wayne Manor. Dick surprises Helena with his presence when she emerges from the shower, waiting for her in her apartment.
In at number 4, Lola La. It's a case of those double L's again. Lola La is the dollar store version of She-Hulk, but with a flower bikini who doesn't speak English or a language that Superman understands. But she is the princess of a dinosaur island, so Superman decided that they should get hitched, and that he should alter his costume so that he never had to wear a shirt. Okay. This occurred in the 1991 Blackout Saga, in Volume 2 of Superman in issue 62. Now at the time, he was missing from Metropolis and the city was suffering from a power outage. Lois Lane manages to find him on this island right before Superman can tie the knot with Lola La. God, that name. Lois interferes and her and the She-Hulk wannabe get into a fight where their primary combat strategies involve pulling each other's hair. Yes, because that's how women fight, right? And what does the Man of Steel do? Well, he just watches them brawl. He considers breaking it up and then he just decides that he doesn't want to. That headband though. Oh.
At 3, we have the Hulk. We only really get to see this in the second movie, and really only a little bit. She's super scared of him in the first one, but then in the second one they seem to sort of share a connection. It seems like neither of them have really ever had a normal life, and I think that sort of brought them together. We were expecting a bit more after Age of Ultron, I have to say. However, with the Hulk flying into space, meeting up with Thor and Ragnarok, their love didn't really have time to bloom, and then trying to string all these different movies and heroes together in Endgame, there just really wasn't time, unless they made a 4-hour movie, which quite frankly I would be about. I would actually watch that, but there just wasn't time. Apparently they even shot some scenes of their romance and whatnot, but they had to cut it because the film was just so long.
Number 2, Wonder Woman. While this romance is mostly based off of fan shipping and in-comic flirting, there have been a few moments where fans were left questioning what was really going on between these two. Both Batman and Wonder Woman, or Wonder Bat as some call them, often end up deciding they are better as friends whenever attempting to come to terms with their true feelings for one one another. Still, this hasn't stopped them from stealing a few kisses every now and then. In some cases, we've also seen them in cliffhanger situations where we are forced to wonder what truly happened in the time they have spent together outside of the panels. Though it has never been confirmed that they have dated or slept together, still, if you want to count kissing and whatever could be happening off panel as a hookup, then this would definitely be high up on the list. Batman and Wonder Woman definitely care very much for each other and would make one heck of a power couple, especially with Wonder Woman because she's quite a bit more powerful than Batman, so it's pretty awesome. Number 1, Luke Cage. So I know Luke Cage is destined to be with Jessica Jones, and I love the two of them together, but She-Hulk and Luke Cage had some of the cutest chemistry that I've ever seen in comics. They both worked together in Heroes for Hire, and it was during She-Hulk's time there that Luke Cage won a date with her by betting that he could get to the control room of a building before she could. He won running through the walls to get there, and She-Hulk agreed to go on a date with Luke. He and Jen just have some great dialogue during their time together in the 90s. She-Hulk is quite sassy, and they both seem to challenge each other in the best of ways, causing one another to reflect on their worldviews. They push each other to be better too, and are both tough enough to survive getting romantic with the other. Short-lived romance. Bring it back. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. I hope you learned about some of She-Hulk's romantic partners, and through that got to learn even more about her. Our relationships with others really can be quite telling. Who do you ship with She-Hulk? Do you have a favorite superhero that you'd like to see her paired up with that she has yet to connect with? Do you think that she and Wolverine will ever be a thing? Let us know in the comments below. And speaking of comments, let's take a look at some comments from my video Top 10 Superpowers You Didn't Know Wolverine Had. Lord Lysius comments, "To this day I still don't know how they ever tried to say that Logan's head was able to transform into the werewolf form, when his skull is encased in freaking adamantium, and as such it doesn't have much freedom to change shape. LMAO. Good point. My theory is that transforming into a werewolf just heats up his body temperature so much that it allows even his adamantium to melt and remold with his changing bone structure. Either that or it's comic book magic." Panda says, "Came for the Logan, stayed for that epic Stop War shirt." Thanks, Panda. I love that shirt too. Such a fun play on the title Star Wars. And also such a real statement. Let's all aim to get along, understand one another better, and end conflict, even if we can only affect it at a small scale. That's all the time we have for comments today. Be sure to like, subscribe, and ring our bell if you haven't already for all of the sweet, sweet, nerdy notifications. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you, as always, to stay nerdy, YouTube.
Being the epitome of the stereotypical superhero, Superman has long been associated as being an ubermensch of sorts, a version of masculinity that should be strived for. While that is questionable at best by today's standards, Superman still manages to have a whole lot of sex appeal. Even though Lois Lane is arguably his OTP, this character has knocked boots with a few other superpowered individuals over the years, who can't deny his handsome charms. So today we are taking a closer look at his romantic past with our list of the top 10 superheroes Superman has hooked up with. Starting us off in at number 10, Big Barda. Let's begin our list with a comical romp of a relationship between Superman and Big Barda. In Action Comics issue 593, Superman was almost in a porno with Barda. Not even joking. The story in the issue, titled The Suicide Snare, begins with Darkseid sitting in his living room with a stiff drink, informing Mr. Miracle and Oberon that Big Barda has been up to no good. He then shows them a tape, which we never see play on panel, of her starring in an adult film, pleasuring Darkseid's old lackey, Sleaze. Of course, fitting name. Meanwhile, Sleaze takes a mind-controlled Barda and Superman to an adult film director named Grossman to make a porno starring the two heroes. Sleaze wants to use the film to make money so he can buy an army to get revenge on his former boss. Mr. Miracle ends up walking in on the shoot, encountering Grossman telling Superman that he has the sex appeal of a side of beef. Ouch. That's definitely gotta hurt the ego. But I mean, if you're the Man of Steel, like, can your ego really take a hit like that? You can just brush that shit off.
Number 9. Batman and Black Canary. These two are definitely an odd pairing, but of course not the weirdest on the list, more just an unusual ship. They have hooked up plenty in the all-star Batman and Robin comic book universe, but if you're one of those people that prefers to claim that alternate realities don't count, there's still a lot of weird romantic moments we've had from the original Justice League of America days. Now technically this is all considered Earth 1 now, but these issues came out in the late 60s, early 70s, before Earth 1 was really established as, well, being Earth 1. And anyways, call me crazy, but I consider Earth 1 to be pretty close to the main continuity simply because, I mean, it was the main continuity before it was retconned into an alternate reality following Crisis. Anyways, over on Earth 1, back in Justice League of America issue 88, we got a weird love triangle moment featuring Black Canary, who was stuck choosing randomly between Batman and Green Arrow after sharing a passionate kiss previously with the Bats. So the relationship technically goes way back. So far back that it's part of the now alternate reality that was once main continuity pre-Crisis.
Number 8. Happy and Pepper. Yeah, I just said that. This one would never happen in the MCU, but just imagining it is pretty hilarious and weird. So yeah, in the comics they were a thing. There was this sort of love triangle actually that happened going on with Pepper, Tony, and Happy. So once Happy was hired as Tony's new bodyguard, Happy and Pepper started to bicker, kind of argue a little bit, and through that they ended up becoming pretty flirty in nature. Kind of like in high school when somebody makes fun of you, it's because they usually end up liking you a bit in the first place, you know, it's like playful banter. So Pepper and Happy ended up getting married, that is until Happy met his demise in the Civil War storyline. Sads. I honestly feel like Happy and Aunt May are gonna do this whole marriage thing in the MCU. Like this is gonna happen to them. Like by the time that happens, Peter will probably end up running the Avengers, so I'm sure he'll take the spot of Tony when it comes to commenting on the weird relationship between the two. Only I'm sure it will be more lighthearted and fun in nature. Kind of like what we saw with him in Far From Home. Solid dynamic, I'm here for the both of them. Or maybe Spider-Man is gonna get pissed once Happy dies, and that's gonna be like his way of like coming back in. Or maybe Aunt May will die, and then he'll be even more pissed. Oh my god, we have a lot of things to work with.
Number 7. Lois Lane and Jonathan Carroll. The fact that this relationship happened I guess made sense, since this is when Lois and Superman's marriage was basically erased in the New 52, but it still was a strange pairing. Superman ended up with Wonder Woman, which was also kind of weird to be honest, though a lot of fans did enjoy that pairing. But Lois got stuck with Jonathan Carroll. Now who is Jonathan? Well, he's basically an obnoxious and forgettable character who at one point also showed up on panel without his nipples. Where did he leave those nipples? I don't know. Their romance only lasted a few issues and ended with Lois erasing some of his memories before leaving him, because I guess she didn't want him calling her ever again. Forget my number, but literally. Number 6. Becca. Becca was Hamon's daughter. She grew up on Apocalypse, where Hamon plotted to overthrow Darkseid, keeping his daughter a secret to protect her. She eventually fell in love with Orion, Darkseid's son, but during a run-in with Batman where she helped to save Superman from Desaad on the planet Tartarus, she found herself attracted to the Dark Knight. Despite their brief romance, Becca decided to go back to Orion, and the two parted ways. Also, Becca's fine.
At number 5, we have Hawkeye. Part of why they left Europe was because the KGB tried to kill her. That's really when Hawkeye decides enough's enough and he wanted to get out of the villain game, and they continue to work together, but now for the Avengers in the US. When they were first here, that's when they started dating for a while. He even proposed to her. She debated it. He almost died, she questioned life without him, but in the end she decided not to go ahead with it, and they broke up and did solo careers for a while. You see it a bit in the movies, like there's a bit of tenderness between them in the first one. In the comics it's sort of an on again, off again kind of thing. Kind of like Diana Troy and Riker in TNG, it's like when it works they're together, when it doesn't they're not. I think what brought them together so many times is that feeling of understanding. Neither of them really have superpowers, they're just super well trained. They were both criminals that moved to the good side. They were both looking to take down Iron Man in the beginning. They both have tragic backstories. A lot of it just fits together and makes them an obvious choice to kind of be together.
Number 4. Wolverine and Storm. Now, whenever Wolverine is in the picture, you know somebody's gonna get hurt, whether it's physically or emotionally. So Storm and Wolverine were always flirtatious. They were the cool kids of the X-Men. They didn't exactly get involved with a lot of the drama. They were too cool for that, you know? Besides, Wolverine was too into Jean Grey anyway, so his hands were full. Now, after a divorce, that's a tricky time to do stuff. Even flirting with a coworker after a divorce, it just looks way worse now more than anything. The timing is just ill. Storm divorced Black Panther, and then things got interesting. The two of them ran the Jean Grey school and hit it off. Now, the two of them could have just gone on to become the best of lovers, but Wolverine had to go ahead and die, not giving the relationship the proper light of day.
Number 3. Thor. More recently in the comics, She-Hulk and Thor have been a thing, which has excited many fans. Both heroes are known for their strength, making this superhero duo quite the power couple. Originally, Jen was worried about having a crush on Thor. She feared that he only liked her for her She-Hulk form, but in Avengers Volume 8, she and Thor have a heart-to-heart. Just as Jen is ready to walk out on Thor, he confesses his feelings, admitting he is enamored by the She-Hulk, but who he really wants to know is the she inside, who he feels he has distance from. He wants to know Jen's desires and thoughts and fall in love with them. The two seal the deal with a kiss. Aw. I also love how that all starts with Thor being like, I'm terrible with words. And then he's like, JK, I just nailed it.
And number 2, Luma Line. Luma Line was introduced in 1962's Action Comics issue 289 in a story titled Superman's Super Courtship. And it was under weird circumstances. This is the whole Supergirl thing that we mentioned earlier. Supergirl decides one day that she feels bad about Superman being lonely. So some fun time travel hijinks ensue, with her trying to hook him up with famous women throughout history. When that fails, she manages to find a superwoman from another planet named Luma Line. Because apparently Superman prefers women with names that alliterate with the letter L exclusively. Maybe that's why Maxima just didn't fit the bill for him. Luma and Kal-El are totally smitten with each other, and he even talks about them getting married when she's like, I'll leave my home world for yours. But they realize that she loses her powers if she doesn't have the rays of her own sun reaching her. So they shed a tear and part ways. But what makes this story particularly fascinating, or cringeworthy, or steeped in Silver Age glory really, is the reason why Supergirl had selected Luma for Superman in the first place. It's because she is a Superwoman duplicate of Supergirl, basically an older version of herself, or of Superman's teenage cousin from a different universe. Supergirl gets all mopey over the fact that she failed to find him a marriage, and then Superman gets real creepy about it, grabbing her by the chin, telling her that if he ever did marry, it would be to, I quote, someone super and lovable like you. We can't marry because we're cousins. Though cousins can marry in certain countries here on Earth, we're both from the planet Krypton, where the marriage of cousins was unlawful. What the f***, Superman?
And at number 1, we have Iron Man. I know, no one is safe from her feminine wiles. In the Ultimate Marvel universe, she is much closer to him than in other comic books or movies. They date, they even get engaged. However, it turns out that she is a traitor and was just manipulating the Avengers to destroy them for payback for the fall of the Soviet Union. It all ends with Hawkeye, of all people, killing her, and then, it's a bit about to get Kardashian in here. After she is killed, there is a sex tape that is leaked of her and Iron Man, so she does damage to Iron Man's reputation even from the grave. Some dark business there. And there you have it. These are the top 10 people the Black Widow has hooked up with. Which one do you guys think was the juiciest, or your favorite, or who do you think she should be with forever? Comment down below, let us know. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell if you want to get notifications about more content coming your way. I'm Kat Jovi. This was Top 10 Nerd. Thanks so much for listening. Welcome to Top 10 Nerd. I'm Kat Jovi, and today we're going to be talking about the lovely Black Widow. Wow, can't even.
Last time we saw you guys was of course part 1 of our top 10 weirdest Marvel hookups. And listen, there are a lot of weird hookups in the Marvel universe, both the comics and the cinematic universe, so it's only fair to add some more to the list. And make sure you stick around until the end of the video, because I'll be featuring a couple of comments from part 1. It's always so fun reading your comments, and if you guys click that little bell there, you can be notified when we do our live premieres, and then we can all hop in the chat together and talk shop, and I can respond to your comments live. Even if they're mean, I'll type back. I'm Taylor McWatters, let's dive in. Number 10, Mystique and Deadpool. Deadpool gets around, and so does Mystique, in fact. So it's only fair to assume that the two ended up crossing paths at some point. In holy matrimony even? Maybe. So in Deadpool number 27, titled The Wedding of Deadpool, we find out that Mystique and Wade were married. That would be the best wedding of all time. Well, the love wasn't true or strong enough to last, as shortly after he asked her to sign the divorce papers. He's also been married quite a bit, so this isn't his first divorce rodeo, that's for sure. So why didn't the couple work out? Well, Mystique, being Mystique, was actually just using Wade, sort of like a way into Weapon X so she can steal some files. Classic Mystique move. The issue itself is quite enjoyable and funny. We even see Wade visit the lovely Niagara Falls. Maybe he goes over in a barrel, I'll never tell.
Number 9. Man-Wolf. She-Hulk and Man-Wolf had a brief and rocky romance which later became a full-blown love story to them, who were both under the influence of Eros. StarFox made the two of them fall in love and they both became obsessed with one another. She-Hulk even went so far as to try and stay in her human form when she was around John, who preferred her that way. The two eloped, but when Jen found out the truth behind why they really loved one another, she immediately wanted a divorce, finally understanding why her and John also had so many unresolvable disagreements, yet somehow decided to stay together. John wanted to give it another go, saying that he still loved Jen, but she refused to give in, claiming that really they had never loved one another, leaving Man-Wolf, aka John Jonah Jameson III, with no options but to sign the divorce papers. I get it though, She-Hulk's pretty awesome, I'd want to hold on to that too.
Moving on to another woman with the initials LL, in at number 8, Lori Lamaris. Remember that time Superman hooked up with a mermaid? Yeah, that is an actual thing that happened. This one is a product of a 1959 issue of Superman, number 129, in a story titled The Girl in Superman's Past. Lori and Clark had met each other in college and the two had ended up in a relationship. It's also worth noting that Lori is in a wheelchair. When Lori tells him that she needs to return home and tries to break things off, Clark decides he wants to marry her and abandon being Superman for her. He ends up at her apartment where he sees that instead of a bed, she's got a tank of salt water. Therefore, she must be a mermaid. And he's actually right. Looks like that blanket that she was wheeling around with is hiding more than just legs. It's a whole f***ing mermaid fin. Imagine dating someone and they're like, surprise, I'm a mermaid. Oh. Borderline bestiality. Lori is actually from Atlantis and the whole story was just a justification as to why Superman would not propose to Lois Lane. Also, I personally can't get over how fancy Lori's little shirt is that she wears while being a mermaid underwater. Very prude for a mermaid, isn't it? Although it was the 50s, so. She's just like committed to high fashion, swimming around in the water, doesn't care if it gets all dirty with the salt and debris.
At number 7, we have Von Doom. Okay, it's an alternate universe. It's a mini-series created by Neil Gaiman. I love him. It's set in 1602. That's right, the Elizabethan era is where our heroes and villains are now roles of, the New World and the English court. Natasha is a secret agent that is working for the Queen through Sir Nicholas Fury, and she is the most dangerous woman in Europe. In issue 2, she's helping Matt Murdock to protect the Knights Templar's treasure, but she double crosses him. It turns out that she is secret lovers with Count Otto von Doom. He is this evil tyrant ruling over this area and just being an asshole, basically. I mean, he doesn't really sound like a catch to me. I'm gonna prove my point later on. Later on, she is the captain of his flying ship, and she questions his plan to go to the edge of the world, which I think seems reasonable, and he just pushes her over the edge. Just done. Dead. Tough love.
Number 5. Iron Man. Oddly enough, someone else who also has a romantic history with She-Hulk tried to stop this from happening, Clay Quartermain. Tony appears and offers to debrief She-Hulk, revealing a candlelit dinner setting in a room on the helicarrier, despite the fact that Quartermain insists that he should be the one doing any debriefing. Tony Stark and She-Hulk end up in bed together after the debriefing, if there was one at all, and actually begin to have a fairly interesting conversation. She-Hulk inquires as to how Tony manages to sleep around, expanding that when she does it, she's labeled as a skank, but when he does it, he is glorified as a player. Tony is about to answer and provide Jennifer with his insight when the helicarrier is attacked, detracting what could have been undoubtedly a very interesting conversation between the two supers. Number 4. Black Canary. Back in the Silver Age of comics, Batman and Canary share a few romantic moments, and even almost had a full relationship. But ultimately she ended up choosing Oliver Queen, Green Arrow, over him. In fact, the two even had a dalliance while she was with Oliver Queen. Ooh, I'm surprised she didn't end up leaving Green Arrow actually. He actually spent a lot of time bossing her around and telling her what to do, but then again, that was often the struggle of most superheroines in the Silver Age. This weird love triangle has been revisited a few times in modern comics as well, with Batman and Black Canary sharing even more racy kisses and embraces, but this time on rooftops, and instead of in the JLA space satellite. Number 3. Captain Marvel and Stargirl. So this doesn't inherently sound that bad. Captain Marvel, or Shazam as we now know him, is really Billy Batson, a teenage boy who Stargirl, a teenage superhero, finds herself interested in. For a time the two date, and Stargirl is obviously interested in Billy, not his adult hero form of Shazam / Captain Marvel. However, not everyone who's part of the Justice Society of America knows that Billy Batson is Captain Marvel, which makes things super awkward. Eventually, Jay Garrick as the Flash ends up bringing up his concerns about the relationship with Captain Marvel, who he believes is a grown man dating a 16-year-old girl. Not willing to reveal the secret of his true identity, Billy decides to break things off with Stargirl and leaves the Justice Society. He breaks up with Stargirl while in his Captain Marvel form too, which kinda just makes this whole thing weirder.
Number 2. Scott Summers and Emma Frost. We've all been in class and maybe you see your high school crush on the other side of the room. You start to daydream, maybe you're putting your pencil through your hair, doing all that cute and you start to daydream of talking to them, maybe even dating them. You can't help it, right? All those hormones flying around through your high school head. High school's wild, man, what a weird time. Cyclops loves the telepathic types, so this exact scenario could get him in quite the pickle if he did anything like this, which he did. So after Emma becomes Scott's therapist to say, some things get heated. So she used her telepathic powers to enter Scott's mind to help him get through past traumas, you know? What a good friend. So naturally they get pretty close, maybe a bit too close. The affair happened in their minds, which is why this is one of my favorites on this list. Like Jean Grey walked in on them in their / her minds, all the minds together. Superheroes are insane, man. So Emma Frost pitches the situation pretty well. She's like, no, we'll be in deep private thought where it's safe to explore these feelings without guilt. And he's like, Emma, I'm clearly betraying my wife, come on, get out of my head. I don't know, I feel like with the psychic stuff, that's like, does it count? Is that cheating? Yeah, that's cheating. If you think about it. I don't know, what a weird loophole.
Number 1. Batman and Batgirl. You might think it's strange that I decided to put this point above Supergirl and her super horse, but honestly, I just find it to be an even more strange ship than that previous one. Even if we're talking outside of the animated Killing Joke film, which literally allowed us to see these two get intimate on screen, well I mean almost. We obviously cut away from the actual deed, because you know, there's kids watching and such. We also saw Barbara Gordon, daughter of Commissioner Gordon, Batman's good friend, and Bruce Wayne himself get shipped together really awkwardly in a comic based on the animated Batman Beyond series. In this comic, it's revealed that not only did Barbara and Bruce have an intimate relationship, well, basically Dick was absent, but we also learned that Bruce got her pregnant as well. Yikes. Why did this have to bleed into other things? Why did this have to be a thing at all? Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. Which two characters from DC would you most like to see paired up? Are there any ships you simply cannot stand? Are there any team-ups that you wish also led to something more romantic? Let us know in the comments. And speaking of comments, it's time to turn to some comments from one of our latest videos, Top 10 Alternate Versions of Mewtwo. That's written in kanji, I believe that name, and it possibly translates to Ghouls Also Need Love, I think, maybe? Ghouls Also Need Love, possibly, writes, when the original movie came out, the VHS came with a holographic Mewtwo card on the inside of the case. I still have my tape and the card in its sleeve. Amazing! Now at a cursory glance, when I actually looked up that card, it seems like that card is pretty collectible. It could get you potentially $700 if you find the right buyer, but I'm also assuming you do not want to part with your Mewtwo card because Mewtwo is the best. Tommy Creets responds, this girl keeps bringing it with the outfits. I like clothes. It is known. And that's all the time we have for comments today. Be sure to comment below for a chance to have your thoughts and feels shouted out in a future video. This has been Top 10 Nerd and I'm your host Amanda McKnight. Till next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.